Arlington across their chest. Jumper up from 17, and Sherrod will knock it down. Here on the near side, Kendall skips to Whittingham, or that is Whitaker, who knocks down Clark on the rebound. Quick down, Sherrod's not going to shoot the three. Got it to Foreman, who will. Good night.
Well, the Colorado women are in the middle of a 16-day break in their schedule. 8th-rated team in the country, 9-1. That's the last time they were on the court against UT Arlington. And, of course, the Buffs got the victory. Back here to Buffalo Stampede, voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson. We come to you from the media room here at the event center. This is where the radio and television and newspaper guys are all doing their thing before and after games. Brian Howell, our buddy from the Boulder Daily Camera, joining us. He sweats like crazy in here, working, slaving over his pieces after every ball game.
Absolutely.
Hey, 9-1. This team's got to be a lot of fun to cover right now.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I mean, they were a lot of fun last year in that Sweet 16 run, and then this year I think they're even better. You know, and obviously they haven't been top 10 in a very long time, and so the ranking is much better. But this team is offensively they're much better, and defensively maybe not quite where they were last year, but the veteran presence is showing up night in and night out.
I think we all thought this was going to be a very good team for JR, but that season opening victory over number 1 LSU kind of took everybody by surprise a little bit because of how lopsided the ball game was. Is this team a Final Four caliber team right now in your mind?
I think so. I mean, I can't remember who the commentator was. Candace Parker, maybe. At the end of that game, she's like, this team ought to think about Final Four. That ought to be a goal for this team. And I think so. I mean, they're number 8 in the country. And, you know, when you get to the tournament, it's all about matchups. And so it depends on what the matchup is there. But if they put themselves in a position to where they're hosting that first weekend and you can get through that, you're in the Sweet 16, then, you know, if you get a good matchup, this is a Final Four caliber team because of the way they play defense and because of the weapons they have and the veteran leadership they have here.
You know, our buddy Gary Barnett always says in football, you have to play 4 or 5 games before you know what you are. Okay, the Buffs are 10 games in at this point in time. What's the strength of this team?
I think the veteran leadership, because I would have said defense, but they're not playing defense like they did last year. I know JR wants to improve that. Offensively, they've been much better than they did in the past. But I think the overall thing is that they've got so many veterans that they stay poised. And we've seen games like they're playing Boston, who, you know, they should have beat by 30, and then they did. Yeah. But they're down by 3 late in the third quarter, and all of a sudden outscoring 38-5 the rest of the way. You know, and that's veteran leadership. And so you see it show up against LSU, against Boston in those situations, and that's what's getting them through a lot of these games.
You know, last week we had Frida Foreman on the show. She's become a 1,000-point scorer for the Buffaloes, one of the great shooters in the country. I got to admit, I was doing a show and somebody asked me about them the other day, and I said, you know, when she got here, I thought she'll be a nice player. I didn't expect what she's become. She's really become a force for this team.
Yeah, and you know, JR knew, like she told me when she first got here, before she got here, so that she's a really good all-around player. But the first few years, she was that three-point shooter that did a few things that were nice. And this year, it's like, oh, she's a really good all-around player. And you know, it's taken her a few years, and you could see that development. She's always been good, but she's now, I think, a great player. Like she's a first-team all-conference player.
And it's also nice when you got a great point guard. We've got one on the men's side with KJ Simpson. Of course, Jalen Sherrod has been outstanding.
Yeah, she has been, and you know, she hasn't. I actually just chatted with her earlier today, but as we're doing this, but like. She was kind of joking. She goes, "I don't have to work that hard." She goes, "All these teammates I have just make it easy to where I think she said, I never just have to work smarter, not harder, and I just have to deliver a good pass." But yeah, she's so good at running this offense now and delivering the passes.
Next up for the women, they play on a Thursday, the 21st. They'll take on UNC. That's a day-night doubleheader with the men. Women play at noon. Men play later on against Utah Tech later on that evening. Hey, football, real quick.
Yeah.
You know, here a couple weeks ago, you thought the sky was falling. If you kind of looked at social media out there. And here we stand here on this day, and Deion Sanders is finding offensive linemen. He's getting receivers, hiring new coaches. All of a sudden, it's turned pretty optimistic for the Buffaloes.
Yeah, you know, I kind of referenced on Twitter this article in The Athletic where there was an anonymous coach quoted saying, "There's no way in blank you're going to find a new offensive line for Shedeur." Well, he found it. You know, I mean, there's 6 offensive linemen, I believe that number is, starting offensive linemen from the FBS ranks that have committed here. Plus, you got one of the top JUCO tackles in the country that's committed here. Plus, you got some guys coming back that were starters last year that can help you, Savion Washington, guys like that. So all of a sudden, you do have a new offensive line, and you go and get a Will Shepard from Vanderbilt, who has been their leading receiver the last 2 years. Kind of reminds you of like a Xavier Weaver. There was the leading receiver on a bad USF team. He was the leading receiver on a bad Vanderbilt team, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, he could be a star too.
And Phil Lolholt coming in as the new offensive line coach, impressive hire.
Yeah, you know, he's a guy that doesn't have that coaching resume yet because he just stopped playing a few years ago. but he played in the NFL just a few years ago, and was a starting offensive tackle for the Minnesota Vikings for like 7-8 years. And so that's got to register with those players.
The thing about it is I'm not surprised anymore what Deion does because it's so unusual for all of us, but it's been impressive.
It has. And when he says he's going to do it, you got to give him credit because he goes and does it.
Yeah. We coming. That's the word. That's Brian Howell. He's from the Boulder Daily Camera. Check out his coverage to see women's basketball all winter long, and football for that matter, with the recruiting season upon us. I'm voice of the Bus, Mark Johnson. That wraps up the Buffalo Stampede this week. We'll talk to you next time.